Yeah, so the first question I ask is what can we change in our individual habits of consumption? So this is, I think, taking an honest inventory of our own patterns of consumption, looking really hard at, when we're buying things, when are we prompted to buying things? Are we prompted because we just saw a commercial? Are we prompted because we just saw our neighbor get it? Are we prompted because we feel compelled to give gifts and give more and more at holidays, for example, right? So I think really analyzing critically and in a deeply reflective way our individual habits of consumption is a really good starting point. I think another one to ask yourself is to ask whether it's possible to prioritize buying more items built for what I call planned perseverance. So instead of planned obsolescence, where marketers and others are trying to sell us things that aren't going to last very long, can we intentionally buy things that are meant to last, things that we know we're going to hold on to for years and years? A new practice of heirloom culture, where, instead of buying a coffee table that's cheaply made and you're probably going to get rid of, within a few years, maybe you went to IKEA and picked it up. Can you get a carpenter to build one that is beautiful and you're going to love forever, and you may even pass on to your children or beyond it? Another question is, how can we all contribute to this leap of being mindful of our stuff? So this is a bit of encouragement for us to have those conversations. You opened with sharing your conversation with your son, and it's precisely those conversations. I have them with my 12-year-old daughter, with my friends and family, that I think helps spread the message and expands the dialogue around consumption as a form of social practice as well, as much as a kind of personal choice. I think it's also important to ask ourselves what it means to address this crisis as a society. So, what can we do together to actually change how society itself is organized, so that some of these objects are produced still at scale as they need to be, but done in a way with the least harm. So, what this means is changing policies, governmental strategies around waste and production. There was a law that was proposed a few years ago in the US called the Right to Repair Act that would entail certain manufacturers to ensure that their products were repairable. In France, there's an index of repairability that most major consumer items have to be scored upon. Kenya has banned single-use plastics, right? So it's these kind of solutions at scale that we also have to look at and seriously consider and ask ourselves, how can we as individuals be part of those solutions? I think another leap is not only inevitable, it's also necessary. The crisis that we are in with our relationship to our planet demands that we do our best to alter the course that we're on. And one way I've framed these leaps is they are dramatic changes, but they aren't necessarily dramatic changes for the better. This is not teleological where, we started as simple primates and now look at us, we have achieved so much. These are leaps in different directions, sideways, maybe even backwards. And I think certainly the third leap, with not just the ability to create more, but the ideology of abundance, that was a step that has put us in harm's way in our relationship with each other and our world. So I think this fourth leap is going to come. And I think we need to encourage it to come, to do our part to see it arrive as soon as possible. And what will that look like? I think that is what's so exciting actually about this moment and what leaves me most optimistic. We look at, the number of programs in engineering that now explicitly train around sustainability. We look at the passion of the younger generations coming up and their advocacy for environmental protections. And we look at the minimalist movement and conversations there. I think we can look further to those kinds of conversations to help people change their personal lives and their relationship to stuff. So I think it's going to be a total societal change that has to happen all the way from, the policy level, kind of on the ground, what's happening in manufacturing, how we deal with waste, and our practices as consumers today. What gives me hope is that long view of what it means to be human. That a lot of our impulses, a lot of the ways we live, our relationship to our stuff, this we're experiencing it in new forms with new questions and new crises. But this is a long story, and we have been around for millions of years, and we have constantly found creative and novel ways of reimagining what it means to be human, what it means to live in our world. And I have no doubt that we are going to continue to reimagine, to look forward in just radically new ways, things that we can't even conceive of at the moment, that those changes will come. And as a species, what makes us so special is that we can draw from the wisdom of that history, the wisdom of our elders, the wisdom of these philosophical and religious traditions. We can learn from history itself. So unlike other species that typically are only forward looking, they can only anticipate the next few hours or next few days or beyond, we have the incredible capacity to both look forward and backwards. And that will transform our present moment. So, that's really where I see the optimism is in the big story itself. Tools make us in so many ways, and it goes all the way back to the emergence of stone technology. You know, Prior to these first tools, humans could survive without things. But with the emergence of these tools, the tools actually begin to transform the human body. So if you think about what a knife does, a knife is basically a big external tooth. It cuts up your meat, minces it, makes it smaller so that your teeth have to be less sharp, your jaw has to be less strong, and you can still eat it. So basically, a knife is a big tooth. And as that big tooth becomes more sophisticated and does its work, you actually begin to see these biological changes of our ancestors. Their teeth do get duller, their jaws get more gracile, less robust, and then that creates more capacity in the skull for a bigger brain at exactly the same time that our ancestors were consuming more calories and fats and vitamins and all the stuff that our brains need. So, about 2.5 million years ago, you begin to see biological changes because of these technological changes. And that is the emergence of this symbiotic relationship, truly symbiotic evolution between technology and biology. And then today, our world, if you fast forward now millions of years to where we are right now, the capacity for our things to make us is every day and probably so subtle that you don't even think of it. The ways, for example, the clothes that we wear. If I wear a tie to this meeting, or I wear this collared shirt, or I wear a t-shirt or a tank top, all of those things have been shown to not only express my identity, but actually shape my experience in the world. So the very clothes that you wear drive how you experience the world. And it's because people react to you differently when you're wearing a tie than when you're wearing a tank top. And so, everything from the clothes that we wear to the houses that we live in, the cars that we drive, all of that shapes our everyday experiences really on a moment to moment basis. Yeah, that's a great way of framing it. And, I'm also, as an archaeologist, I'm often asked, is our species still evolving? Will you see changes in our form? And what they're really asking, I think, is typically our biology. They want to know if we're going to look like space aliens with cone pointed heads or whatever, right? In 1,000 years. But your point, as you're drawing it out, is exactly the answer, which is that because the technology that we surround ourselves is inevitably going to be changing, that means the experience of being human is also inevitably going to be changing. So this is a symbiotic relationship between stuff and our biology, and you put that together, and that is the human experience. And that has been changing for millions of years. And as our technology does change only more rapidly, that probably means the human experience is also only going to change more rapidly too.